Picture this, America before the Civil War. It's a nation where millions of people are enslaved, their voices completely, systematically silenced. But out of that deafening silence, one voice is going to rise up and roar, becoming one of the most powerful in the nation's entire history. And his incredible story raises one central question. I mean, really think about that for a second. How does that even happen? This isn't just a question, it's the whole story of Frederick Douglass's life. We're talking about a journey from being literally listed as property, like a chair or a horse, to becoming an advisor to presidents. It's just an incredible story of pure defiance, sharp intellect, and this unstoppable drive for freedom. All right, so to really get who this man was, we have to go back to the beginning. We need to understand the world he was born into. And let me tell you, it was a world specifically designed to crush a person's spirit from the moment they took their first breath. So, Frederick Douglass was born into slavery in Maryland, right around 1818. And that little word, around, is actually huge. Because like so many enslaved people, he had no idea what his actual birthday was. Now, that wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate, cruel tactic to strip away your most basic sense of self from the very start. And this system of oppression was just relentless. He was taken from his mother when he was just a baby. He grew up seeing horrific violence all the time, as if it were a normal part of life. And maybe the most important rule of all, he was forbidden, legally forbidden from learning how to read or write. Why? Because his enslavers knew exactly what they were doing. They knew that knowledge, well, that's power. But here's the amazing thing. The one thing they tried so hard to deny him, knowledge, is the very thing that lit a fire inside him. This is the real turning point in his story. It's where he finds the key, the ultimate tool that will eventually set him free. He put it perfectly himself. This quote just says it all, doesn't it? For Douglass, freedom wasn't just about not being in physical chains anymore. No, it was about freeing your mind. He knew, deep down, that learning to read was the first real step to deciding your own destiny. And the way he did it was just brilliant. I mean, talk about resourceful. First, he gets the alphabet from a slave mistress who, hadn't quite gotten the memo about how dangerous an educated slave could be. Then, and get this, he starts trading his bread with poor white kids in the neighborhood for reading lessons. He literally turned his food into an education. Every single letter he learned was a tiny act of rebellion. You see, learning to read did something profound. It gave him the words to describe the injustice he was living through. It opened up a whole new world of ideas about liberty and justice. Suddenly, that feeling he always had that things were just wrong, it wasn't vague anymore. It became a sharp, focused, burning determination to be free. And not just for himself, for everyone. Okay, so all this new knowledge, this fire in his belly, it's all building up to this one critical moment. He's armed now, not with a physical weapon, but with a powerful mind and a will that just refuses to be broken. And he decides to take the ultimate risk, the journey to freedom. The year is 1838. You should remember that date, because this is the year Frederick Douglass grabs his destiny with both hands. He escapes. He gets out of Maryland and makes his dangerous way north to freedom. And just like that, his life is split right down the middle. There's the before, and then there's the after. And the change wasn't just about location. It was a total transformation of his identity. He gets rid of his slave name, Bailey, and he chooses a new name for himself, Douglass. He's literally redefining who he is. He goes from being property on a ledger to being a person. And that voice, the one that was supposed to stay silent forever, well, it was about to get very, very loud. Now, think about this for a minute. Once he was free, he could have just disappeared, lived a quiet life, stayed safe. And honestly, who could blame him? But he didn't. He made an incredibly brave choice. He decided to take his own story, his own pain, and turn it into a weapon against the entire system he just escaped. And make no mistake, this was unbelievably dangerous. He was still a fugitive slave. Speaking out publicly was like painting a giant target on his back. But he knew something crucial. He knew that his personal story, told in his own words, coming from someone who had lived it, that was more powerful than any argument. It was the real deal, and it was undeniable. And oh, did he use that weapon well. His speeches, they were legendary, electrifying. People were captivated because he wasn't just giving a lecture, he was sharing his soul, making the abstract horror of slavery terrifyingly real. Then he writes his autobiography, and it becomes an international bestseller. It forced people, in America and around the world, to look at the ugly truth they've been trying so hard to avoid. So, the Civil War ends, slavery is abolished in 1865. You'd think that would be the end of the story, right? Mission accomplished. But not for Frederick Douglass. For him, the fight wasn't over, not by a long shot. This was just phase 2. The moment slavery was officially over, he immediately pivoted. Now the fight was for voting rights, for equal education, and get this, he was also a huge advocate for women's right to vote. He was one of the few men at the famous Seneca Falls Women's Rights Convention. See, he wasn't just fighting for one group, he was fighting for equality for everyone. And this right here might be his most profound legacy. He understood that freedom isn't just about what you're not, I'm not a slave. It's about what you have. The presence of equal rights, of real justice, of actual opportunities. That's such a modern, sophisticated way of thinking. It's a vision we're still striving for today. So when you look back at his whole life, it's just this incredible testament to the power of a single, determined voice. He proved that education can be liberation. He showed that one person's story really can change a nation's conscience. And he taught us that the fight for what's right, it's a lifelong commitment. So think about where he started. A boy, silenced, not even allowed to know his own birthday. And where he ended up. A man whose words literally helped change the course of American history. It's an astounding journey. He saw the great injustice of his time, and he gave his voice to it. And that leaves us with a pretty big question to think about, doesn't it? What injustices around us are still waiting for a voice today?